Stop trying to contact her. It's not just silence. It's a psychological trigger that changes everything. Her ego crumbles, her emotions spiral, and she starts questioning everything she thought she knew about you. Stay with me because in this video I'll break down the exact response. You'll see when you go silent and why it's the most powerful move you can make. One she feels was confused at first when you stop trying to contact her. The first and most immediate reaction she experiences is confusion. Imagine her mindset. She's grown used to your presence, your messages, and your calls, even if she didn't always reply promptly or showed minimal interest. Deep down, she had a sense of security, knowing you were there. Suddenly that dynamic changes. At first, she might not take it seriously. She could tell herself he's just busy, or he'll reach out tomorrow, but as the days stretch into weeks, that initial sense of security starts to waver. She begins to wonder if something has shifted, if you've pulled away intentionally, or if you've lost interest altogether. This confusion is a result of her expectations being disrupted. Humans are creatures of habit, and when a predictable pattern changes, it forces us to pay attention. Your silence creates a noticeable void in her daily life, and her mind starts to fill that void with questions. Why hasn't he texted me? Did I do something wrong? Is he upset with me? The most interesting part of this stage is that her confusion isn't just about you, it's about her. She begins to reflect on the control she thought she had over the situation and why that control seems to be slipping. She might even start to check her phone more often, hoping to see your name pop up or replay old conversations in her mind to figure out what went wrong. The longer your silence lasts, the more her confusion grows. It shifts from a fleeting thought to a persistent question that she can't ignore. And the beauty of this stage is that you're not doing anything to create this reaction. Your absence alone is enough to make her notice. Confusion is the first crack in her ego, and it sets the stage for everything that follows. 2. She begins to question her behavior as her confusion deepens. It naturally evolves into self-reflection. This is when she starts to question her own behavior and how it might have contributed to your silence. Initially, she might resist this thought. Her ego might tell her he's overreacting or it's his loss. But over time, those defenses begin to crumble, and she starts to look inward. She might think back to specific moments. Did she ignore one too many of your messages? Was she dismissive during your last conversation? Did she fail to show appreciation for the effort you put into reaching out? These questions don't just come and go. They linger, replaying in her mind like a broken record. This self-reflection is uncomfortable for her, because it forces her to confront the possibility that she might have taken you for granted in the past. She might have assumed that your attention was guaranteed, that no matter how she acted, you would always be there. But your decision to stop trying to contact her challenges that assumption. What makes this stage so powerful is that it flips the focus entirely. She's no longer thinking about what you're doing or why you've gone on silent. Instead, she's analyzing her own actions and decisions. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. She's beginning to realize that her behavior might have played a role in pushing you away, and that realization is both humbling and impactful. As she questions her behavior, she also starts to re-evaluate her feelings toward you. What she once dismissed as predictable now feels valuable, and this shift in perspective is what makes her start to miss you, setting the stage for the next emotional reaction. 3. She starts missing your presence when you stop contacting her. The absence of your presence becomes more than just noticeable. It becomes a void that she feels deeply. At first, she might not recognize it as missing you. She might chalk it up to a sense of boredom or a change in her routine. But as time goes on, that feeling grows stronger, and she begins to realize exactly what she's missing. She starts to think about the little things, the way you made her laugh, the thoughtful messages you used to send, or the sense of support you provided. These weren't just small gestures, they were emotional anchors that made her feel valued and connected without them. Her day feels a little less bright, a little less fulfilling. This stage is where emotional contrast comes into play. She begins to compare her current reality without you to what life was like when you were reaching out. Maybe she didn't always reply to your texts right away or seemed indifferent to your calls, but now she's starting to realize how much those interactions meant. Your absence highlights your value in a way that your presence never could. What makes this stage so effective is that it happens naturally. You're not actively trying to make her miss you. You're simply giving her the space to feel the impact of your absence. And the longer that absence lasts, the more she starts to focus on the positive memories you shared. This isn't just about nostalgia, it's about emotional connection. She begins to feel a longing for the moments you created together, and that longing keeps you at the forefront of her mind. The more she misses you, the more likely she is to take action to bridge the gap you've created. 4. She wonders if you've moved on as your silence continues. Her thoughts take a more serious turn. She begins to wonder if your decision to stop contacting her is permanent. Did he move on? Is he talking to someone else? Has he forgotten about me entirely? These questions aren't just about curiosity. They're about fear. The idea that you might be happy without her is a direct challenge to her ego. It forces her to confront the possibility that she's no longer as important to you as she once thought, and that realization doesn't just sting, it creates a sense of urgency. This stage is where her imagination starts to fill in the gaps. She might picture you going on dates, meeting new people, or even thriving in ways she never expected. These mental images aren't based on reality. They're based on her insecurities. And the more she dwells on them, the more emotionally invested she becomes in the idea of reconnecting with you. She might also start looking for signs that you've moved on. She might check your social media, ask mutual friends about you, or even replay old messages to see if she missed any clues. These actions aren't just random. They're driven by her need to understand where she stands with you. The beauty of this stage is that you're not doing anything to create these thoughts. Your silence alone is enough to make her wonder, to question, and to fear the possibility of losing you for good. And that fear is a powerful motivator. 5. She decides to reach out when the emotional weight of your absence becomes too much to bear. She takes action. This is the moment when she decides to reach out, and it's a pivotal stage in the process. But her message isn't just about reconnecting, it's about regaining a sense of control. Her message might be casual, like, "Hey, how have you been?" or "I just saw something that reminded me of you." But beneath that casual tone is a deeper motive. She's testing the waters, trying to gauge your reaction and see if she still holds any influence over you. What's important here is how you handle this moment. If you respond too quickly or too eagerly, you risk undoing all the progress you've made. But if you stay calm, composed and confident, you reinforce the dynamic you've created. Show her that you're happy and thriving, but don't over-investment. Let her see that, while you're open to talking, you're not desperate for her attention. This stage is where the power dynamic shifts entirely by maintaining your composure. You're showing her that you're in control, not her, and that's what makes her chase you. Your silence has already done the work of making her miss you, question herself and reflect on your value. Now, her decision to reach out is a clear sign that your approach has worked. 6. She feels her ego cracking when you stop trying to contact her. You're not just stepping back, you're silently challenging her ego. At first, her ego might shield her from the truth, telling her he's just busy, or he'll come running back like always. But as time stretches on and you remain silent, those reassurances begin to falter. Her ego, once her strongest defense, starts to crack under the weight of your absence. This process doesn't happen all at once. It begins subtly. She might notice the absence of your name lighting up her phone, or realize that she hasn't had a meaningful interaction with you in days or weeks. At first, she might dismiss it, but as those moments accumulate, the silence becomes louder. She starts to wonder, why hasn't he reached out? Is he moving on? Does he care anymore? These thoughts are a direct hit to her ego, which thrives on feeling important and irreplaceable. What makes this stage so impactful is that it's entirely self-inflicted. You're not saying or doing anything to make her feel this way. Her own mind is doing the work. The more she reflects on your absence, the more she begins to question her control over the situation. This isn't just about you, it's about her sense of self-worth. Your silence forces her to confront the possibility that she might not hold as much sway over you as she thought, and that realization stings as her ego cracks. It creates a vulnerability she's not used to feeling. She might start to miss the validation she once received from your attention, or feel a sense of regret for not appreciating you more when you were present. This vulnerability is powerful because it makes her more open to introspection and reflection. And the longer you maintain your silence, the deeper those cracks in her ego become seven. She starts comparing you to others. Once her ego begins to crack, she starts to fill the void you've left by looking for comparisons. This is when she begins to evaluate the people in her life consciously or unconsciously against the standard you set. Maybe she's spending time with other men, talking to friends, or even meeting new people. But no matter who she's with, there's a recurring thought in her mind. They're not him. This isn't just about missing you. It's about recognizing the unique qualities you brought to the table. Maybe you were a great listener, someone who made her laugh effortlessly, or the person who truly understood her in ways others couldn't. Those qualities stand out even more in your abs because they're not easily replaceable. She starts noticing the ways other people fall short, and those comparisons make her appreciate you even more. The emotional contrast becomes sharper as time goes on without you. The small, meaningful gestures you used to make, like remembering her favorite coffee order or sending her a thoughtful message, become glaringly absent. She starts to realize that not everyone will go out of their way to show care and consideration the way you did, and this realization isn't just humbling, it's unsettling. What makes this stage so effective is that it reinforces your value. Without you lifting a finger by stepping away, you've given her the space to see what life is like without you. And that contrast creates a longing that keeps you on her mind. The more she compares, the more she realizes that you're not easily replaceable, and that realization the seed of regret, making her more likely to reach out. 8. She wonders what you're thinking as your silence continues. She becomes consumed by one question. What is he thinking? This question doesn't just linger. It starts to dominate her thoughts. When you were actively reaching out, she had a clear sense of where you stood, but now your silence leaves her in the dark, and that uncertainty is difficult for her to handle. Her mind begins to replay your past interactions, searching for clues about your feelings. Did you seem distant before you stopped contacting her? Were there signs that you were pulling away? Did she miss something important? These thoughts aren't just idle speculation. They're emotional triggers that keep her focused on you. This stage often leads to overthinking. She might analyze your social media for hints about your life, or look back at old messages to decipher your tone. Every unanswered question becomes a puzzle she feels compelled to solve, and the more she wonders what you're thinking, the more emotionally invested she becomes in the idea of reconnecting. What makes this stage so powerful is that you're not doing anything to create these thoughts. Your silence is enough. By refusing to chase her or provide clarity, you're creating a sense of mystery that keeps her engaged. And as her curiosity grows, so does her desire to reach out and re-establish a connection. She's not just thinking about you, she's actively trying to understand you, and that effort keeps you at the forefront of her mind. Walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of taking back your power. If you found this video helpful, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.